Very much, Giovanna. We're very glad to join you today to talk about the important work that we have done jointly together with colleagues from CWTS, DORA, Felix from ISC, and then myself from ASAPbio. And I'm pleased that a handful of people on the call were also part of this work, so very glad to recognize your contributions and to hear from you as well in the discussion. Um, so, um, We wanted to tell you a little bit about sort of what we've been up to in this work, what we've done already, and sort of the rationale for why we think this work is necessary. And then Felix is going to talk a bit about what we're doing currently and sort of opportunities to get involved. So in November last year, we convened a group of 25 people representing organizations working in both the research assessment space and the publishing reform space. Organizations from all over the world came together. So we've got a nice image there of our colleagues. Um, we were really pleased that we were able to get participation from such a diverse group for this meeting. What was the rationale for the meeting? Why were we coming together? We wanted to bring together the important work going on in the research assessment reform space with the publishing reform space. And it was based on this logic that without the without these two different related movements working together, it would not be possible for either movement to achieve its goals. So I think Giovanna sent around already the paper that was sort of the basis for that sort of spelled out our argument for this claim, but I thought I'd walk through some of sort of the key points there. Um, the majority of you on this call, it's sort of the primary reason that you're here and participating in this is because you care about reforming these aspects of research assessment and researcher assessment. So you want assessment to be aligned to the research mission of an organization. You want to recognize diverse forms of quality and varied research contributions going beyond just publishing research in prestigious outlets. You want to help contribute to abandoning inappropriate uses of quantitative indicators. So there's certainly an over-reliance in academia overall on things like GIF and H-index and so on. And you know that these things are distorting research culture. You also want to see a balance of quantitative and qualitative assessment. So just to have a holistic evaluation of researchers has to go beyond simple counting exercises. So none of these things are a surprise to all of you, the participants in and the champions for reforming research assessment. But our claim is that you won't be able to achieve these things if the aims and objectives of a related movement, the publishing reform movement, are not also achieved. So um, let me just first acknowledge both of these statements of aims are simplifications. There's, many other things that, of course, people are concerned about and trying to achieve. But in broad strokes, we think these are kind of the big picture things that the movements are trying to achieve. So publishing reformers want to improve access and equity to the research literature. They want to, reduce the use of subscription and APC business models that limit participation and consumption of research. We want to reduce delays and inefficiencies. So we want research communication to move at the speed of research, not at the speed of publishing. We want to increase rigor and strengthen evaluation. So there's, peer review, of course, is an important process throughout publishing, but it doesn't meet the needs of scientists today. There needs to be additional ways to bolster the integrity and the rigor of research, and being able to have access to transparent and useful critique is part of how we can do that. And lastly, we want to support community governance and sustainability. So we want the publishing system to reflect the needs of the community and not the commercial interests of actors that are profiting from it. Okay, so just like the aims of the research assessment movement, our claim is that none of these aims will be achieved if the research assessment movement is not successful. So the two halves need each other. So we identified some shared challenges that inform kind of the interdependency or the joint nature of the two movements. And I'm highlighting three of them here. There was actually a fourth one as well, but these are kind of the three that we've settled on focusing on for now. There's a shared challenge around journal prestige and journal-based indicators. And for both movements, reducing reliance on these flawed indicators will increase the likelihood of success of those movements. So as long as journals are cemented as sort of, the pinnacle of what researchers are trying to achieve, that's undermining both research culture and the ability of assessment to focus on things that are of value to universities, and it's undermining the ability of alternative forms of publishing to flourish. There's also shared challenges around bibliographic databases and lists. So we know that the most well-used databases are selective, they're biased towards English, and they use opaque processes to decide what to index. So as a result, the databases are wielding outsized influence on researcher incentives. So if researchers are saying, I can only publish here and there because these are the places that are on a list that my university accepts, that's biasing the research that they're doing and the potential impact that it could have. Likewise, there's a whole information ecosystem that research assessment staff have to use to evaluate researchers. And so if they are reliant on what the bibliographic databases provide, that shapes their assessment in ways that are potentially problematic. So again, both for publishing reform to flourish and for assessment reform to flourish, there needs to be alternatives to these closed bibliographic databases. Lastly, there's a shared challenge around recognizing research outputs beyond articles. So there's a whole world of research contributions beyond just the narrative text that we produce to describe our research. But this includes things like research data, materials, analysis codes, study registrations, analysis plans, protocols, policy reports, public outreach, and more. All of these things are under-recognized by traditional assessment. And for things like improving the rigor of research, all of them are critical outputs as well. And so we don't, without a way to recognize those outputs, they maintain their position as sort of second-class research activities. So the focus on articles is holding the whole system back. Okay, so there needs to be an alternative that really advances our focus on those outputs beyond just articles. So this is a shared challenge, again, for both movements. It affects the success of both the research assessment reform movement and the publishing reform movement. Okay, so as a result of these various shared challenges and the sort of overlapping interests of the two groups, at the meeting in Pisa, we came together and we tried to come up with sort of tangible activities that we could do that would help us to make progress on the shared challenges. And Felix is going to tell us about those groups.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, so as Katie said, we dedicated the latter half of the workshop in Pisa to coming up with ideas that might go towards solving some of the shared challenges that were identified. And on that day, we came up with six potential ideas. And then following the workshop, we narrowed that down to three, and those are here on the screen right now. So I'll just briefly introduce those to you. So first of all, we have the Beyond the Article action group. And this is really responding to the need to elevate other outputs, as the title suggests. So really looking beyond the journal article, but thinking about other ways that researchers produce outputs and other contributions that are valuable, but are not currently considered in assessment. And the aim here is to promote a system where these alternative outputs and contributions are appropriately valued. Now, we are aware that this is a crowded space and there's a lot of initiatives already active in the area. So the focus here is not to come up with a whole new initiative, but really to try and build on what's there and rather focus on coordination and building mutual understanding. So in the actions or foreseen actions for this year, we intend to do some landscape mapping, looking at the existing initiatives and convening stakeholders that represent those to build consensus on norms, practices, and standards, but also to then try and identify some challenges that are common to the initiatives and to, based on that, identify an action plan on a priority area that will hopefully emerge from those discussions. Then the other action group, I'm skipping to the right of the slide here, is what we've called Global Core. And this is recognizing the fact that researchers are increasingly mobile internationally and therefore have to face different and varying assessment frameworks throughout their careers. And this therefore creates a need to have some consistency in terms of assessment across contexts. So the goal of this action group will be to see in the first instance if there is a common set of dimensions, assessment dimensions, that hold across the world and across contexts. And in order to do that, initially the group will review some of the current dimensions and methods that are used across contexts and regions, and to run a global survey to test whether a common core would have support and would be fruitful. And if so, to try and then develop such a core of sort of common assessment dimensions. Now, these two action groups, we've already drawn up some terms of reference, and these groups are essentially ready to sort of be put together and start their work. There is a third group that was sort of identified based on the discussions at Pisa, which is in the middle here, which is on trust indicators. And the background to that is that currently there is no standardized framework for indicators that can signal trust in terms of scholarly content to consumers of that content. So the goal here would be to develop a shared and standardized set of indicators and associated metadata that can communicate credibility and trust of scholarly content. Now, this action group is slightly different to the other two at the moment because this is closely connected to a proposal that was submitted by DORA, the Center for Open Science, and F1000 to the National Information Standards Organization. So rather than sort of creating a separate action group, we would like to connect the dots here, but that means we have to wait for this proposal to be formally approved. But once that happens, there will be opportunities to contribute to that initiative through this network here. Now, before we wrap up, I would just like to briefly talk about something that we're doing at the IAC, which is very closely connected to the Pisa workshop, namely the Forum on Publishing and Research Assessment. Much like the Pisa initiative, this also seeks to align reform in scholarly publishing and research assessment, also based on the premise that change in one ultimately depends on progress in the other and vice versa. And it was actually through the forum that the IAC also supported the Pisa workshop. So this isn't just a shameless plug, if you will. Now, within the forum, our steering group has been having discussions over the past few months to identify the forum's approach for the year ahead, and we've landed on a focus on incentive structures and the way that they affect behaviors at the researcher but also institutional level, and how they sort of force a very narrow form of scientific contribution. And the IC is, of course, a membership organization consisting of national academies, scientific unions, and other research organizations. So in the first instance, the forum will be leveraging that membership to try and bring some perspectives from regions and disciplines, especially those that are underrepresented. Moving forward, we'll be focusing on two priority areas that we've recently identified. The first one, and that will be the primary focus, is on broadening what counts as scientific contribution. And the idea here is to, leverage the IAC membership, but also the broader network to identify currently undervalued outputs as well as roles that scientists have, and to then use that as a basis to potentially engage with publishers and other research information providers to make these alternative outputs and roles more visible and accessible. And the second priority is loosely connected in the sense that it also shapes incentives, but that will be to sort of speak out publicly on international university rankings uh, and how they basically shape and well reinforce rather a very narrow definition of scientific contribution as well. Now, it is a forum, so the idea is also to make this a platform for any organizations and stakeholders involved in research assessment and publishing to come together and share ideas. So you can already join this forum. You can just go through the IC website and there'll be a short form to complete, and then you'll be included and you'll have the opportunity to contribute perspectives, but also to participate in some consultations and workshops that are coming up, as well as provide feedback on what the forum is doing. We're also in the process of setting up a LinkedIn group, so that will also serve as a space to exchange ideas and connect with others that are active in this field. But it also connects to what we're doing under the Pisa initiative, because end of this year, the forum will be hosting a meeting, bringing together various stakeholders involved in this space, including some of the action groups that I talked about earlier. So yeah, I think we can finish up, and basically we would like to communicate to you that we warmly invite you to get involved. So if you are interested either in just staying up to date with what the PISA action groups are doing, or even to join one of the action groups that we talked about, then you will be able to do that. So you can flag your interest to us, and we're also interested to hear from you what you are working on. And we're very keen to hear from the community what initiatives might be out there that are worth connecting to. So I think I'll stop there and open the floor and give the floor back to Giovanna, perhaps.
Yes, thank you very much, Felix. Giovanna?